the class. Can you record it and then send to another student?
Done.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and I'll also mute you all just for the sake of good order. And please feel more than free to open your microphones as often as you want to chat. I sent a WhatsApp with a chat, and I can send it here again. So feel free to use the chat wall that I opened. I think it's a little nicer than the chat over here. The more you participate, the better. Having said that, I'll mute you all. Joel, I know you. I'll probably remember why and from where, but I definitely know you from somewhere. And maybe a few other of you. Jerusalem, I don't know. Okay, good. So, if no further introduction is...
Excuse me, some colleagues are waiting for you to let them in.
Right, a second. Okay.
And I'm sorry, Ariel, did you say you had opened a chat through WhatsApp?
Yeah, I sent Akiva on the WhatsApp. How will we do this? I'll, just a second. It's actually a good thing to have if we can have it together. Let's see if we can. I hope this is a lot of technology here. So here, put this in the chat in a second. Okay, never mind. Akiva, can you just copy it from the WhatsApp to the chat? I'll see, it's a bit complicated.
You want me to copy to the chat the link that you sent me?
Yes, please.
All right, I will.
Thank you. Okay, admitting all, wow. So I see we have quite a few participants. Okay. Okay, are we ready then? So what you'll find in the chat that Akiva will be sending in a minute here in your WhatsApp and maybe also in the chat over here is a few documents, including a document of guiding principles of which will be pretty much the core of our conversation today. Let's see here. Okay, here I put it here. It's now in the chat. So if so, you can open it and you can feel free to also chat on this wall. I think it can be a useful tool. Okay. Good. And wow. Welcome, bro.
It's on the chat link now.
Yes, right. I also put it here. Good. So our conversation for this day is guiding. A little bit about myself. My name is Ariel Fogelman, and I love guiding. That's one thing to be said. And that's what I've been doing in the last 20 years or so, teaching and guiding. So except for different things that I teach and guide about, which is quite a variety, I also enjoy thinking about guiding itself. For the last 12 years, I've been training guides. So therefore, I had to start articulating things that are often just a gut feeling of what's right. But the more we articulate what works and what does not work, the better off we are. You know, anyone can tell you, oh, this guiding was really great. I really enjoyed it. Or something in the style of, you know, it was a little boring. I don't know. It wasn't, maybe if the vocabulary is a bit better, you'll say it was not very engaging. It was very engaging. But what we want to do today when we develop our conversation skills about guiding and our feedback skills, so we can give each other feedback and we can get feedback ourselves, to develop the language, what exactly we're looking for when we're talking about guiding. In this chat, what I sent also is, it's called guiding evaluation. Maybe we'll even share this stream. Okay. Okay, you're still with me?
Yeah, we're with you.
Okay.
Yes.
So feel free to add your chats over here. You see there's this plus button in the bottom. And here there's a document we call the guiding evaluation. Okay, feel free to download it, to print it. And this is basically the outline of our conversation today. And for me, when you evaluate guiding, so here I try to kind of give numbers. What do we appreciate? You can argue about the numbers. You can choose your own numbers. How much would you give to each category? What makes a guiding 100% good? I think it will be an interesting question to ask once we're done. What's missing in this kind of one page about guiding? Of course, there must be a lot that's missing. So feel free to think as we go, what would you add here? What is very important for guiding, but I did not put on this page. And since we're together at Zoom, speaking in front of a Word document will be less visual, so I put this all in a PowerPoint. Okay, so let's close this and come back to our short presentation. But if you have that Word document, you can really follow it and you'll know pretty much where we are at any moment. Before talking about guiding itself out there in the field, a few words about what we do, what is super important when we come to prepare ourselves for the guiding task. Even if it is a 7-minute task you get during the course or a full day. Similar preparations will often need to be done. First one, which goes a long way, we'll talk about many things that are not knowledge, but we'll also talk about knowledge, the information you acquire. And the homework you do will affect the quality of the knowledge you have. To find reliable and rich sources. To explore what you're going to talk about. That is, to my opinion, the first stage that you're going to come into as you prepare your guiding. If you do not do this, there's really little chance that your guiding will be very good. If you take unreliable sources, that is also an option. To find interesting things about what you want to talk about, the more you read, the better. Maybe something very important, this is not the main topic of this session, but something important I think that sometimes we forget is the first thing to read when you do your homework is if you have an initial, like, original source that you can use when you guide. May it be the Bible, the New Testament, Josephus, if there is a source which you count on, don't read about the source, read the source itself. It will give you the best feeling of the story and already guiding aids and tools to use later, something that we will talk about as we continue. Okay, so there's homework of information and there's pre-trip management to do. There's a lot of work to do before you go out there. If your tourists are kind of surprised by a lot of the logistics that they need for the day, your day will just...
Ariel, excuse me. Ariel, can you hear me?
Yes.
There is somebody out there that is waiting for you to let him in.
Okay,
Still.
thank you. I actually do not see anyone waiting. We have 49 participants.
All right, so I'll check with him. Go on.
Okay. Usually it will pop up. So before we come at the group itself, we need to prepare them. So they need to know, of course, where we're meeting, what we're doing, and an example I put here on our clipboard is how I prepare a group for sites that we go to. For example, if you're going to go to the Dead Sea and you did not tell them in advance to bring a swimsuit, a change of clothes, a towel if you do not get one at the beach you're swimming at, and so on, it will not be good. If you did not tell them to bring walking shoes, hats. For example, something I do often is take the program and on top of the program, next to it, for every day, say what you need to pack. Already in the States, when you prepare for the tour, so to divide it by day, this day you'll need a dress. Which American tourist coming in the summer will think about bringing a dress? You're coming for a trip in the Middle East. Did you think about going to the Western Wall on Friday night or to the Temple Mount or to this, bringing long pants? This is things you need to manage in advance before you start guiding even. Otherwise, your guiding will not work out. It is very nice. Today we have so many tools. It's really amazing. So for example, often before I take a day tour, so often the group I'm taking already has a WhatsApp group. So I'll ask the administrator, or the head of the group, can you let me in the WhatsApp group like, a day in advance? And then I start with this direct communication, even send a few riddles, say nice to meet you, and remind everybody of the logistics. There'll always be those who forget, but let it be their fault and not yours. If it's your fault, it is not good. Because it will really ruin, you can prepare the best guiding in the world if you do not well manage the group. Make all the phone calls you need in advance and now WhatsApps and so on, it's not working. So good order is a big part of being a good guide. We all have our strong points and our weak points, but and we need to work on those that are not as strong. That's fine. I stopped the sharing in order to reopen that clipboard that you all have. And let's come back from here. And you're welcome to open a document I prepared for a group as example. For example, because I knew that the communication between me and the person who ordered the tour and the group leader, and then there's the group, I knew there'll be miscommunication. So I sat down to write a letter and I said, please, pretty please, make sure every participant gets this letter, which is called Get Ready for the Temple Mount. Because this was a day tour starting at the Temple Mount. So, basic guidelines. On the morning of the day, if you're Jewish, you may want to think about issues of tahara, of purity, okay? Because I know that the Orthodox Jews in the group will come to me on the morning of a tour and say, wait a minute, is it allowed? But I just WhatsApped with my friend in New York who said his rabbi said it's not allowed. I want him to ask himself, here as I'm admitting someone in, I want him to ask these questions and ask his rabbi way before he meets me, what he can do or what he cannot do. What's the dressing code? So modest dress, what does that mean? This includes bare hair, arms, shoulders, low necklines, or no shorts. Men too are not permitted by the Muslims to ascend in shorts. Okay, this is to be super clear. Additional information. Let's yada yada yada. Bring a passport. We do not permit any religious expression on the mountain. No, thus no Bibles, prayer, or religious symbols can be brought with you. So, giving them everything, wording it, all the logistics you need for the day. So it is true if you go to the Dead Sea, if you go to a hike, and it's true if you go to a religious site. If you go to visit, you go to visit soldiers, something that Jewish groups do often. You want to bring a gift with you. If you did not remind them of all these minor logistical things that are often, at least to me, not inspiring. I told you that I am very moved and excited to meet you. This is not what I had in mind when I was talking about it, but this comes first. All of our excellent guiding will be based on good preparation, which we did not finish talking about yet. Okay, coming back to our preparation. So we talked about communication as direct as possible with your group and with your staff. So this is this triada, this trinity. This is the driver, myself, and the head of the group. And we have to talk before we meet. Often I'll also make a phone call.
Excuse me. When you
Yes.
say head of a group, you're referring to like an organized group, as opposed to, say, a family or something.
You'll always have kind of someone who represents the group. That's what I call the head of the group. If it's a family, it will often be the mother or the father who organized things, who contacted you. And you will want to bring information to the entire family and be in contact with them. If it's a family of over, I guess, 5 people, it is, and then you have a dilemma if to make lunch a little later or not, or how we're doing now. Is it too much information or not? You'll not always ask the entire family. You'll often come to the parent or both parents and ask, okay, how are we doing? Here I have this dilemma. So to have this, if it's a family, if it's an FIT group also, there'll always be the contact person. And who is, he doesn't have to be the only decision maker, but for us he is. Because it's kind of a key person that you go to. He's the one who ordered the tour from you. He's the one that will give you the cash and the tip, or the check and the tip, or whatever at the end. So you want to be in touch, let's call him the tip giver or whatever. So let's be in good communication with them all along, and this communication begins before the tour. The driver, does he understand exactly where he needs to be and when? Don't trust the head of the group. It's good that the head of the group will tell them, and the agent and everything, but you're the one that really knows the the little details of the gathering point of where the bus can stand, cannot stand, of when we're really leaving eventually. Because perhaps he was ordered for 7 just because, but actually when you talked an evening before with a mommy of a family, she said, you know, we had an excellent night, a great restaurant on the beach, but we stayed up so late, there's no way we're starting at 7. If you had that conversation with her and did not have a following conversation with the driver, you have an upset driver for the entire day. Because he woke up at 6 a.m. in order to get from his house to the hotel after a shower and everything. And then he waited an hour and a half. And then another hour because actually they told you 8:30, but it ended up 9:30 because they had a very long, nice breakfast. So that's communication. Speaking of our driver, your driver usually does not get off the bus. He can't always get off the bus. So if this is a hotel, you go to the dining room, and before you chat, and we'll talk about what we do in the dining room, get him a cup of coffee. Ask him how is he? Does he need you to look after the bus for a second, for you to, so he can go to the bathroom or maybe get himself a cup of coffee from the dining room? So remember, this is the team. This is a team on the bus all the time, and you need to work as a team. And perhaps we'll talk about team building and preservation of the teamwork as we go. Questions or thoughts until now? Okay, we're still before meeting our group. Okay, 2 more things about who you are. How do you come? So I see pictures of 2 people here on the screen. One is a guide and one is not a guide. Okay, you need to pay attention. Am I representable? Is this, it's perfectly fine to be unshaved, to wear torn pants and a t-shirt that says all kinds of things. That's great when you're on vacation, when you're with your friends, with your family. When you go to work, you need to show you respect the people in front of you, and part of the language we do so is by a certain dress code, appearance, that shows that you respect yourself, your position, and the people in front of you. It is true there are specific niche tours, but it may be super hip to come with torn pants and with a cool, colorful shirt. If you're giving a graffiti tour of Florentine, okay, that may work because that kind of fits into the position. But the basic position of a tour guide, that does not work. And we welcome Abid into the conversation. Okay, being presentable is not only being dressed in a respectful way, it is also being a role model. I'll say it as is. A tour guide should be a role model. I'm not saying we are all perfect people. I'm definitely not. But something I really love about our job as guides is I feel it brings the best out of me. It reminds me to be at my best. We all have our spectrum. Sometimes we are at our best, sometimes we are not. I wish us all that we'll be in our best with our families, which is most important. But a good practice is when you are out there guiding. You see a piece of trash on the floor. Will you take a second to pick it up? How do you treat your environment? How do you treat the driver? How do you treat the people in the restaurant? The waiter that's serving the group? The person who's taking your voucher at the entrance of a site? All these people, you are under the lens of your group all the time. When you just come by someone on the way you interact with them someone who maybe you're bothering them in the middle of the way. Maybe he's shouting at you. But your interaction towards your environment is very, very important. To the group, it is almost as important as your interaction with the group. They see you as a human being. They study you all the time. I have had many conversations where the participants came and told me how they noticed how I speak here, how I speak there. By the way, when I often tell my group that not to feel that the driver and I are fighting, because sometimes Hebrew and Arabic tend to be a little more loud and aggressive than what we tend to, bring ourselves out in English. So I'm explaining to them that it's a culture thing of language, and we love each other. So all these things are how I address my environment, how I address my group. These are two things that are connected. And this all has to do with who I am, my own focus before even meeting our group. Okay? And now I think we're ready to meet them. Finally. Much as I can, before meeting my group, I want to meet my individuals. I guess as English speakers, you know the famous Monty Python, we are all individuals. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not an individual. Oh, kill the heretic. I have kind of a difficult time sometimes, especially in Hebrew, with the word tourist. As if tourists are some kind of generalization, something that is other than any other human being. I am a tourist, not being a tourist. I am a different tourist than my friend.
Ariel,
Yes.
Ariel, excuse me, maybe you should mute all the microphones because there are a lot of environmental noise coming from somebody.
No problem.
Every once in a while you can release it.
Okay, better. And feel free to unmute yourself. In any event, they are guides who perceive their job as guiding a group. To my humble opinion, they fail in what they do. If you miss out on the individuals on your group, if you spend 11 days with a bus full of people and end up not knowing the name of each participant, you can forget it a week later, that's fine. But if you did not have one conversation, a short half a minute of good morning, how are you, Maisie? Good to see you. So how was your day yesterday? Are you recovered from it? If you didn't have that, I think the participant and the guide are missing out. I started meeting my group with a slide of coffee. Also, when I have a FIT group, sometimes, you have these really VIP visitors, a head of a company that employs 100,000 people. And of course, one of the Israeli directors asked you to come and guide them. And I asked the Israeli side, so can you tell me a little bit about him? So what is his faith exactly, or her faith? What do they like? What do they like to eat? Of course, the one under the hierarchy, they know nothing about all these questions. They never asked. And with those who already trust me and know me, we make a coffee date in the morning. You come from Tel Aviv, or I'll come to your hotel. Let's sit down and have coffee together and chat a little bit. Let me get to know the person. And then sometimes we'll adjust the plan we made so it will be the best fit. because what they want and what I want and what the client wants is a happy client. This is where you feel the pulse, you hear the feedback. And this is where people feel you care about them personally. No, Aristotle wrote a wonderful book about rhetorics. It's one of the classics. I highly recommend it since rhetorics is our profession. And one of the key issues he stresses there is when you speak to a crowd, the crowd needs to feel that you are in their favor, that you are here to enrich them, to make their position better. If they feel that, they'll listen to you. If they do not feel that, they will not listen to you. So on one hand, it's, Aristotle told us to do so, so we probably should, but I really think that is what we want to do. We really want the people to be happy. And if you show it to them, if you come and show the care on an individual basis, if you sit on a different breakfast table every day. What I like to do as a tour guide, I also highly enjoy my own company, especially in a full day of being with a whole group of people. And I also like quiet, but my profession is to talk. So sometimes I'll be the first one in the dining room. I'll enjoy a wonderful breakfast in front of a view all alone on a table by myself. And then with a cup of coffee, I will do my job. Because your job includes this, and your job includes this. And these are the highlights. These are the places where you connect. These are the places where you gain your credit to be a leader of a group, of a mass. This is where a person feels the belonging to your leadership of the group as a larger picture. We'll also want to discuss later, how do I increase the belonging of each participant to the group, not only to me personally, because group dynamics is also something that we can develop, enrich, and that adds so much to the experience. Sometimes it's the most important part. If it is a community, a church, a synagogue, a school, a student organization coming here, often one of the key goals of a trip is group dynamics, is what kind of community returns, what kind of relationships we manage to build throughout our journey. So after saying we are all individuals, often I have this compliment. My English is not my native language. My Hebrew is far better. So I learn expressions for my tourists all the time. And one of the common expressions is, wow, I'm so impressed. You're like herding cattle all the time. You're like a shepherd. You need to. So we talked about group management, being the shepherd before the group comes. And now a few words about the group management when they are with you, when you are leading them in the beautiful paths of our country. And again, management comes before guiding. You see, this order repeats itself. Having a very clear itinerary. What happens when? What exactly happens in the morning? Are we checking out? What does it mean to check out from the hotel? It means you have to have all your bills covered the night before if you charged the wonderful massage to your room and the room service. If you did not take care of your bills, the whole bus is stuck because the hotel won't open the gate for the bus until Mr. Levine takes care of his bill. And then Mr. Levine is all embarrassed and because but something you could check in advance in front of the hotel. So we already discussed the importance of group management. And here when we are on ground, I would add one of the most important elements of group management, which is safety. Safety is the most important piece for our reputation, for our success of the tour. If safety, we also have security issues. Maybe if to say a word about security, what I always tell my tourists, it's not just that I'll take you to places that it is safe. I will make sure to not to take you to any place where you would not feel safe. Even if I feel safe, if there's any risk that you will not feel safe, I will make sure not to take you there. It's not, oh, I'm Mr. Know-it-all. I grew up in the old city of Jerusalem. I can take you anywhere in the Muslim quarter because I know all the alleys. Oh, just check me out, how cool I am. By the way, I also find that it is very helpful communicating with the driver when you don't talk about safety, but about feeling of safety. Because if the driver is speeding and you want to tell him not to speed, he might take it as an insult. Are you questioning my driving skills? You are the guide, I am the driver. That's my profession. But if you say, look, Yossi, you're an excellent driver, I admire you. But what I need is the people in the back to feel calm, to feel like they're in the cruise. So can you adjust your driving, not just to be safe, but to make them feel like they're in a cruise? That feeling of safety, which is also always kind of a step before being really safe. So we're extra safe as much as we can. I kind of shortened the version that we give all our guides. They need to sign on a document that has to do with safety precautions. That, you can put it here, safety.
Ari,
Yes.
do you have any other tips that you can give us in terms of language that we can use with drivers? Because what you just said about making it for the driver not about how he is driving, but like, you know, how it would be great for the group if he could drive. Like that example of a cruise, I've never heard that before, and I feel like that would be really effective. Do you have any other lines that you've found effective, especially with drivers that maybe are a little bit more prideful?
A lot. Well, there's the whole, perhaps we should try and allocate time today for this whole issue of relationships. I'll just tell you, speaking of issues that I did not put in my plan for today because they have a separate class. One is ethics. They are very connected. Ethics and the relationship between the different elements and you know, responsibilities in a team, which is the agent, the driver, the tour guide, the group, the head of the group, of a group leader, and there are more positions. So first of all, just so you know, there's a whole class about this. Akiva, if you want to correct me, feel free. And yeah, I think it's a worthwhile topic, absolutely. Akiva, you're muted. I'm unmuted.
For that.
Well, Akiva, we didn't hear you.
I said that we will have a separate meeting for all of these issues, for all of these relationships.
That's what I thought. Okay, but we can definitely touch base a little bit also on it. And examples will come all the time because we're talking about what we do. Okay, so I opened this, you see you have an option of downloading all the documents. So everything I sent you are things that I feel free because I made them myself, so there's no copyright, but you can find equivalents probably in the internet. I didn't want to put here things that I don't have copyright on. That's also why most of the pictures you will see are mine. It's not because I admire myself, but it's just pictures that I have are free of copyright. So the most dangerous thing in our country is the climate. And to be more specific, the hot climate. The participants often either don't know the hot climate or they come from Texas and look down on it. But it is equally dangerous for us as guides. Also, if we feel we're Superman, we're not. I'm afraid to say that anyone in the industry of tourism, any experienced tour guide must have seen, no matter how careful they are, a tourist that just, at the least, faints and is hospitalized for a day or two, and at the most, dies. It happens all the time. People die from heat stroke. You go in Masada. I thought that Corona gave us a wonderful idea to have our vacations on February, March, April. Wonderful season. Everything is blooming. The weather is nice in the desert. But one of our peak seasons is June, July. And people come to the Negev and to the Judean desert. It is a miserable time to go there, but they came for their 10 days in Israel once in a decade, and they're not going to miss it. It is your responsibility, first of all, to follow the guidelines of, in other words, what we call the Cheder Matzav. Ministry of Education has kind of a headquarters where they say what is safe and what is not safe. If you violated any of those, you are negligent. The agent will usually follow up and let you know, and some organizations, whoever guides youth, has to call them every morning to make sure that your route is all safe, security-wise and climate-wise. But on the bottom line, even if you follow all that, and you have En Gedi on your tour, and you just came off Masada and it's 40 degrees hot, and you really know your group. You see that 60-year-old person who's kind of saying, you know, I'll do it, I feel strong. And you see they're not the same as they were in breakfast. And my huge recommendation based on experience is say to the group, with all the respect, we cannot do today the En Gedi hike. Say to the agent, I'm sorry, it is 40 degrees. I am afraid that a few of my participants will not make it throughout the day. You know, it's just, every year it happens, every year, again and again. So it's best to learn from other people's experience and not from yourself. The guide must walk first. This is a few, you know, very basic things. By the way, when I do not walk first, I also find myself being a bit disoriented because people are blocking my path. But also they may be disoriented and lose the path. And then what do? Drinking is, you have to remind people to drink all the time. And be a role model. Take a bottle of water, raise a toast, say l'chaim. Did everybody drink? Great. Welcome to one of the most amazing, okay? Yeah, I'm full of myself and I wanted to say welcome. I have a wonderful biblical story to share, but let's pause, take a moment, l'chaim, have a drink. Footwear, you cannot go on a hike with sandals. You don't have insurance. You'll also have a whole session about that. I walk with sandals all the time. I enjoy walking with sandals when I'm on my own. I'll never walk with sandals in a group because it's not insured. And if one of the participants says, why the guide walks with sandals, I can walk with sandals too. And then when he breaks an ankle, you have insurance all over you because you were negligent. Count the group. All the time, count the group. You are very likely to lose someone throughout a 10-day trip with people who are naturally disoriented because they're not from here, they don't speak the language. They're not always the best communicators. Not every one of the 40 participants on your bus feels comfortable to say, hey, David, I'm going to the bathroom for a few minutes, so don't disappear on me. Okay, that is good communication. I don't promise that every tourist has that skill. So let's say there is a likelihood that you'll be missing a tourist without anybody noticing. You know, you stopped for something, you gave a meeting time and place, everybody comes back from the Western Wall, and someone has a deep spiritual revelation at that moment and lost track of time. Happens all the time, every time. I give time in the Western Wall, there's one or two people that just have a highlight of a trip and they got so taken away. So that will happen. You will be missing people. And c'est la vie, you are a woman and you're missing a man and you can go in the men's section. If you count, you can handle it. If you do not count and move on, you're in deep trouble. Nobody in the group, neither the agent, will forget that you lost a tourist. To be honest, usually it's not a big drama. We're all grown-ups, take a taxi to the hotel. We'll send a taxi. Sometimes it will cost 700 shekels, but we can deal with it. It's not like someone dying from dehydration. Unless you did not, by the way, this happened recently. Someone was left behind in the desert. That's already super dangerous. If it's extreme heat, it's very, very dangerous to leave someone behind.
Who pays for the taxi in that
Always
case?
count the group. Every time you board the bus, count the group. Every time you leave a site, such as the Western Wall or something, you know, and there are easy ways to do it, or easier ways to do it. It's always a burden, it's always annoying, but we do that. If a group member is, something happened, lost their passport, lost their wallet, they don't feel well. They're a bit nauseous this morning. With all due respect to our individual relationship with the participants, straight away, let your entire staff know. So the person is taken care of. And also, you know, if an agent knows that someone is nauseous, maybe they won't be so happy to send you to En Gedi now in the heat. So this was not a big deal when I started to be a guide, but it is today. Always have an extra battery with you. I wanted to show you my extra battery. Of course, my daughter stole it again because she forgets to charge her phone at night. But always a phone which is fully charged, an extra battery, a charger in your backpack. You need to be able to be in communication all the time. You probably also gave your group your business card or your phone number at least. When we bring in a group, we usually give them a card with all the phone numbers of the staff members, with a phone number of the agency, with a phone number of the hotel. So and we tell them, you know, every Israeli, not every Israeli, most Israelis are nice. If you as a tourist come to, if you don't have Wi-Fi and you don't have a cell package, come to someone on the street, say, can I borrow your phone to make a quick phone call to my guide because I'm lost? You're most likely, if not on the first attempt, on the second attempt, to be able to make a phone call. And you as a guide need to be available on the phone to many, also to your tourists and also to the restaurant that is waiting for you and you're a little late to or they have a problem to the site, to the agent. By the way, that is a weak spot of mine because I'm very total in where I am. It's hard for me to answer the phone, but we need to be aware of it.
Question, how important are satellite phones? How many places in the country?
Not important.
Okay, so even in the desert?
No, that's already something else. If you're going to a 3-day hike in the desert, a satellite phone is super important. But that is already, by the way, the reason this, I took this staff briefing, which is 3 pages long because it has to do with things like that. So I cut most of it out. And this is just the basics. You're a tour guide on an ordinary tour. It's not youth that are going now on an excavation of a desert for 3 days long. Or Yam Le Yam. That's a different operation. And we're not talking about Yam Le Yam, 5-day, or the Jesus Trail or the Gospel Trail. Okay, that is a totally different operation, which is not our topic right now. Everything I said until now has to do with every tour you take out, with that super simple tour where you take the cable cart up to Masada, walk half an hour to an hour on the top, come down and go to the first waterfall in En Gedi. Everything here applies. Everything here applies in Jerusalem. Speaking of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and crowded places, another thing to add, in general, you mediate all the expectations and everything that's happening around. If there are people around that are likely to take your wallet out of your back pocket, you know it. You know that in Machne Yehuda in Jerusalem or in Shuka Carmel and busy places in the world in general, you want your wallet in your front pocket and your camera not sticking out of your backpack. Don't assume that every tourist remembers it. Your tourists also may be overwhelmed with so many new things, they just didn't think about it. Every time I leave a hotel, I tell a story to my group and I say, you know, I really had a nice time in my room. And I loved it. There was that little socket for my charger for the camera and my charger for the phone. It was perfect. A bit hidden from the eye. And the fridge for my medicine and that little cabinet under the tub in the bathroom. All these things that tend to get lost. If you don't remind them, it's fine. But he has this $1,000 camera and he left the charger in the room, and now you will need to figure out how to bring it from Eilat to Tel Aviv. He'll pay for it, don't worry. He won't love paying for it, but why? You're the one that's supposed to be focused. You cannot assume 50 people are in full focus. Your job is to be focused. You're paid for it.
I have a question about
yes,
timing.
Salim.
About timing, you're talking, so what is the best way to tell the group to be on time? Because we all been in groups, and I know that some of the people that they have a problem with time. They really have a problem with time. So what is the best way and the coolest way to tell them, please be on time? because you cannot say to them, I will leave. And I think it's inappropriate to tell that for the group. And you know that Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, sometimes if you don't really go on time, we will get a really big traffic. Then the whole program will change.
First of all, there's no solution. But we have to address the problem because we are representing not only ourselves, but also the group participants that are in time. And we need to stress two things. Two things I think are very helpful. One is to stress that this is our care for each other. Because letting someone wait in the bus is kind of, it's a shame. People will get hurt from taking an extra effort, skipping the breakfast. So let's all for each other. That's one thing. Another thing that I find very, very helpful, and this is a general statement, but now I'm giving it to your answer, is to often share what is in the back of your head. Salim knows that traffic in Jerusalem gets crazy at 7:40 because everybody's dropping off people in school. And Salim knows that he wants to get 3 sites in the Mountain of Olives before the Mountain of Olives closed, before the church is closed, and you won't be able to go back there. And if you just say it's very important to be in time, it's kind of meaningless. But if you say we have a full, rich day, unbelievable sites. Actually, I'm really excited on trying to fit all this in. We will succeed only if we're in good timing. And I'll tell you why. Because these 3 sites that we want to visit, the Church of Ascension, Pater Noster, where Jesus taught his prayer, Our Father above, Gethsemane, they all close at 12 for lunch break. Okay, I'm not sure about Gethsemane, but for the sake of example.
Quarter of.
Thank you. I can't promise you because it depends on all of us and our teamwork, but we'll try to make it. Once you share the back of your head, so what I said is 2 things. First of all, sharing why. Just saying we need to be in time is meaningless. So we need to have a good breakfast too, and we need to enjoy too. But if you have a good explanation of why, that is one thing. And second thing that I'm stressing all along is teamwork. We are a team. We are together. We're together in this. We'll try to do it the best we can together. 2 words that that I don't like, and maybe I'll talk about it later, is I and you. Dividing between us, I prefer the we. We want. We see. You see, or don't you see? In the language, it does make a difference. So it's okay. I see Salim gave us a thumbs up. So hats, water. Don't move before people have water. It's unbelievable. By the way, also you as a course. No, I just came with a group of tour guide course. Where was it? In Jerusalem. But it's crazy hot. So I take another one in my backpack. Because I know if I don't drink, I'm done. How do I know? Because I experienced it probably a few times in my life. And then I see, this cool guy with a jeans and a t-shirt. Well, we're in the city. Mount Herzl. So of course I gave him a bottle. Otherwise I couldn't allow him to participate. It would be dangerous. Spending 2 hours in Mount Herzl in this heat without water is dangerous. Without a hat, let's say you can find a shaded spot. Okay, so all these things, again, they come first. And the tourist, also for them, this comes first. You will hear many times in positive feedback of guides, of tour companies, we felt taken care of. Give a thumbs up if you heard that sentence. We felt that we are taken care of, that really they give us everything we need. That's the base. Someone can be super engaging, interesting, fascinating, inspiring. If he doesn't care for me, not so good. He will not be my choice as an agent for a tour guide. I will prefer someone who has responsibility, someone who reminds you to take your hat and drink your water, over someone who gives you a super meaningful experience that is better in that than the first person. And I am, and again, I am saying, I also, when we used to work in tourism until recently, I employ guides, I guide myself, and everything I mentioned here is not my strong point, but it's not my strength. My strength is in guiding. It's not in logistics. But with the more you understand and learn this world, you understand that this is the base. Everything is built on it. Okay, so we need to know it and to turn away your satisfaction of good guiding for good management of the group and the situation. You're always the manager of the situation, first of all. I'll close this and say another word about management. You're the navigator. Where do we go? How does no one miss the point? Miss the turn? Will I leave someone to show everybody something? You manage the situation. People are hungry. How do you manage that situation now? Okay, so management has many aspects to it, and that is one of the jobs of the group. One of these group participants now slipped off a road and sprained her ankle. You're the manager of a situation. You need to manage 49 participants that are on the way to the Dome of the Rock right now, and also the situation of this participant. You are the manager of the situation. You make phone calls, you take care of it, you need to take care of everything all the time. Okay, Akiva, would you like to add anything to the management aspect?
I think that maybe you mentioned it before, I'm not sure, but I think that if you let everyone know at the beginning of the day, what is the itinerary, what are the places that you go, what is more or less the time schedule, it is very, very good for the people to know what ahead of them, upcoming day. It helps a lot to manage the entire day. People know in advance what they are going to do during the day.
Absolutely. As we mentioned, people are disoriented. Although they have a program from the agent, they forget it because it's all meaningless. It's like it's a blur. It's a lot of details, and we'll talk about it also in a few minutes on how we present a proper program that makes sense, and they will forget. Like Akiva just said, you'll say it in the morning, and then you'll say it again after lunch, because there's all these things that mean. When you say, okay, we'll go to Qasr al-Yahud, and then to Kumeran, and then to En Gedi, and then to Masada, and then we'll have lunch there, and then after lunch we'll go up to Masada, and then we'll come down, and then we'll go to En Bukek, and we'll go to this East Hotel Spa. To most of you, everything I said now has meaning. But when I go to France, or to London, or to a place that I don't really know, and people give me a list of places that I never heard about, I will forget within 30 seconds. You will remember what I just said because it all means something to you. To your tourist, this is all new. So you'll need to repeat it again and again. And now we come back or start the story of actual guiding in the group. Okay, so let's start in how most days begin in the bus. So let's first of all connect to, what do we do when you come into a bus? First of all,
ask the bus driver what his name is and ask if he wants some coffee.
You say hi first, I think. Hi.
what, Alina? I missed that. What did you say?
I think you say hello. That's the first thing to say. Hi, I'm Alina. Nice to meet you.
Wow. Alina, you know, it's a lot of work to come up with that sentence. I'm not kidding. I'm just, Alina, really, just let's look at what Alina just did. She came up to the bus. She smiled. Hi. That was the first part, right? Hi. That's a connection. Okay. I'm Alina. Nice to meet you. And then I wanted to say that she's very pragmatic. Alina didn't say, hi, I'm Alina. Nice to meet you. So let me tell you a little bit about myself and where I come from to this wonderful day. No, she said, hi, Alina. Nice to meet you. And then we need to, the driver, the itinerary. That's why the nice to meet you was a kind of an ending, if you noticed. It's an ending that is because she's in a rush to get to other things. That way, don't worry, you don't need to rush. There's traffic. If you know what you're going to do, everything will come in good time. But it is true what you said. Very important to introduce your staff members, the program of the day, to have a conversation. Another thing that I'll say about being on a bus, there's super interesting things out the window. Maybe they're not so interesting to you because you've driven a zillion times. But I'll already say that I see a lot of guides missing an opportunity, missing many opportunities. And maybe I'll tell you a little story that I think kind of helps to help me at least understand something. I get a group that landed from California in Ben Gurion Airport. Hey, it's afternoon.
Excuse me, Ariel, just a second. Everybody that is not talking, please mute yourselves. There are background noises that really disturb. So if you're not talking, mute yourself.
I can do that.
Sam, your microphone is open. Probably some other people too.
Yeah. So just like Alina did right now, I was sure they are beat. They just want to come to the hotel room and rest. And so I'm like, hi, I'm Ariel. I come from Jerusalem. A little bit about what's going to happen right now. I don't want to bother you with the whole program. And now I will do something that is very difficult for tour guides. I will be quiet a little bit so you can rest. I know you had a long journey until we arrive in Jerusalem. No, no, we came here to see. We don't want to waste a minute. We want to, well, this is amazing outside the window. For me, it's not amazing to Ben Gurion, Jerusalem. I'm not saying all the tourists are like that, but I'm saying they may be. And definitely if there's something interesting to see, and we'll talk about it also soon, that is why we came. We came to see interesting places. We came to learn in a way that we cannot do in a classroom. And the bus is part of it. I don't know if you already talked about the exam and how we write an exam, but in the written exam also there's a request to guide from the bus. So the idea is not to develop an abstract topic. Wow, you know, Israel is a very special place. It has so many different climate zones and yada, yada, yada. It's not like downtime that you find an interesting topic that you like to talk about. It is developing what you see on the right and left of the bus into interesting topics. Okay, perhaps, if any questions about what I said until now?
You were mentioning about the exam. It's okay, it's far too early. But is it going to be a real tour in a bus? Or
Elena, forget about the exam now. I can assure you that I will explain you exactly what you do. And obviously, next Tuesday on our first tour, you will experience for the first time what a bus guiding means. Okay? Because I'm going to talk about our tour from Tel Aviv to Jericho all the way without stopping for a minute. That's not what you are going to do with your tourists, but it will give you some example or some feeling what at least bus guiding.
I have a question.
On your first tour. Max, you had a question?
Yeah, I just asked you, but you probably missed it. Who pays for the taxi in the case of losing the tourist, you know? How does it work?
There's not one rule. It depends on the situation. It won't be the tour guide usually. But the tour guide can pay much more than a taxi ride if you lost a tourist. A taxi ride is usually 50 shekels. A fee for a tour guide day is about $300. And so if you lost one group because someone was disappointed, you lost 10 times $300. Better to pay for a taxi. Okay. So now, finally, we're off the bus and into what is, to me, the most fascinating part and the main part we'll talk about today, which is guiding itself. Maybe before diving into guiding itself, or to remind you that we just talked about the plan of the day. After talking about the plan of the day, we have, let's say, 5 sites in the day. Every site has a plan of the site. For example, so you are in Tel Aviv. So I plan to park the bus in Echad Am Street, maybe walk into the Shalom Tower, then stop next to the house of Akiva Aryeh Weiss and talk about Akiva Aryeh Weiss, and then stop next to the first kiosk, and then stop next to the statue of Mayor Dizengoff and the monument, and then now go to Independence Hall, and then go to Taglit Innovation Center. That's like a little walk in around Rothschild Boulevard, but it would take me about, with the Innovation Center, let's say 2.5 hours. If I went into Independence Hall, it's already 3.5. But I need to build a story between the different spots. It's not that I now come to one place, okay, here's the story of Caesarea. No, in Caesarea, I have a Crusader Gate, and then I walk in, and then I have the port, and different parts of the port, and I build a story that every part is a build up to the next. So we're not talking about that aspect now, but now we're talking about a specific guiding point of 5 minutes. which is a build up to another 5 minutes, which is a build up to another 5 minutes. A mistake that students often do is try to talk in 5 minutes about Caesarea, or about Jerusalem, or about Tel Aviv. You're doomed to fail, because you're trying to squeeze in a zillion things into 5 minutes. But if you notice, I sent you an invitation for practice that we plan to apply during our session. I thought it will be better to give a few kind of general ideas first. And for me, it's far more interesting to hear you than to hear myself. But the idea when you build a guiding unit is that you take something very small and you make it grow. Jaffa Gate is super specific. The Mosque of Omar next to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, a super specific spot, and you make it grow. A synagogue, not the Jewish quarter, but the Chuvah synagogue in the Jewish quarter. Welcome to Bracha Weissman. Okay, so now I'm talking about, let's say, the Chuvah synagogue in the Jewish quarter in Jerusalem, the clock tower in Jaffa, the Crusader Gate in Caesarea. Okay, I'm talking about a specific point, and now I want to build a 5 to 10 minute presentation. Okay, you understand what I'm talking about, first of all? Good. So here's rule number 1. A guiding point will look like this diagram you have over here, which means you begin very high. We have this intro that is inviting the people, that is in a high energy, that is intriguing. I don't see you all right now. Maybe I'll try and have a better view for a second. Will help. But here, now I can see you all. And now, let me show you the most fascinating item I hide in my house. Okay, just a minute, I'll pull it out. Not many people visit my house and never saw this item. Okay. Not really, but I can share with you that now I saw all your heads. People were kind of like this, like that, over there. And I tried to create some kind of sentence, something that will bring people's heads up. Oh my God, there's Wi-Fi here. I can't believe it. I didn't check my Facebook all day long. I need to have this tourist now. Whoa, wait a minute. This is more interesting now. The opening needs to attract my attention. There are many ways to do it. We'll talk about them. But and the closure is what I take away. The closure is something that I will usually remember. It's what the whole point is, building up to a closure. So I start very high and then I go down, up again, maybe a few times until I come to the closure, which is kind of a highlight of my guiding point. And I think it also will be true to more than one point, to a whole site. Right? You have your ups, you have your downs. You can't be high energy all the time. You don't want to be boring and down all the time. Let's think about it as a sandwich. Whoever prepares you this wonderful sandwich will put the most butter or deli or whatever at the beginning and at the end. That is where the impression is left. When you watch a movie, you remember the beginning, you remember the end. Also, with a sandwich, you don't know where someone will start, which side, so you better invest in both. But first impression is very, very important. And also the last impression is very, very important. It's very memorable of a specific point and also of a trip as a whole. Okay, so that's, we're talking about the structure of guiding. And in the next 7 minutes, we'll say a few more words about the structure, and then we'll take a break and start talking about the details within the structure and other items that are on your list. So a drawing I really like is, which I find very helpful as a language to discuss the structure of guiding, is first of all, you need a door. Okay? We said an opening, a clear opening that brings us in, that attracts our attention. There are many kinds of opening. For example, when you said you'll be driving to Jericho, so I'll open it maybe from my phone instead of starting to play with the computer. I'm opening, I'll do this, I'll open files. Eretz Israel, right? I want Israel, I want Judean desert, and you said Jericho. Okay, thank you very much, Elvis Presley. And now I want you all to look to your right, or to your left if you're going to Tel Aviv. Guess which city is this? Very good, Jericho. And what is one of the most famous stories here? Joshua. But you know what? Not only Joshua, it has many more interesting stories. So some kind of engaging, interesting door that brings me in. We all now know, first of all, that this is interesting. It arises my curiosity, this opening. And second of all, that I know the topic, I know what we're going to talk about in the next 5 minutes on the bus, 3 minutes on the bus. That's an opening of one unit, then we'll see something else. So you have to have room for an opening and room for a closure in a structure. And in the middle, we have a body. In the house, you see the bottom floor represents the entrance and the top floor, the roof, represents the closure. And these arrows represent a proper structure of guiding when each thing is a build-up and actually leads to the next. A very common mistake made by guides is the following structure of guiding. Here's my topic. We said, let's call it Jericho. Never mind. We'll call it J. And when I talk about this, and this, and this aspect, I go in different directions, but the connection between A and B, besides the fact that they're both connected to Jericho, is not there. I like to call these arrows also, to look at them as stitches. Did you carefully stitch the link between each part of your guiding and the next? It is something we miss out on a lot. Let's say if, again, you'll be in Jericho, so I'm kind of on this example. So we have a story of Joshua and Rahab. We have a story of Elisha, the prophet. We have a story of Jesus and the tax collector. Okay, 3 stories that I chose in Jericho. The tax collector stands in a sycamore tree and tries to see Jesus from afar. And everybody says, don't. help this guy, he's wicked. And Jesus asked them, who needs to be cured, the healthy or the ill? I forgot to mention the spies before Joshua, but it's the same story. And now if I have all these stories, let's say Elvis Presley was the beginning. And now what Ariel is trying to do in his head is to find something that actually links the different stories. So I'll give you an example that I came up with. It's not necessarily the best, but just to show you how I think. Now, in the story of of Joshua conquering Jericho, there's a super interesting part where Joshua sends spies to Rahab, who was a prostitute. We expect the spies to be super James Bond and the prostitute to be a super prostitute. But actually, when you read into the verses and we read a bit, we find that Rahab quotes Moses himself and shows faith in God, and the spies are the clumsiest spies ever found in cinema. Apparently, things are not always as they seem. The walls of Jericho are the strongest walls ever. It actually has the oldest wall in the entire world, archaeologically speaking. But here, looks can be deceiving. Don't judge a book by its cover. The people of Jericho, hundreds of years later, are sure they are doomed because the water is not good. The spring of Jericho. But here comes the prophet Elisha and says the water of Jericho can be purified. You may have not seen the essence of a spring, but it is a spring of blessing. And the spring is called after Elisha, who showed them the blessing of the spring and miraculously made it better to this day. There's another story. I'm not going into all the stories now because that will take forever. And look at the story in the New Testament. All the people saw the person and they saw his wickedness. Jesus did not judge a book by its cover. And here, this will be the last message we take from Jericho, but we see, by the way, Joshua and Jesus, it's the same root in Hebrew, salvation. And trust me, I could now develop here on the top. I won't do it right now because I feel I'm being a little too much, but I could develop here now a concept connecting Yeshua, salvation, and seeing the inner essence and not judging a book by the cover. And then I would have a very clear line stitching. And although I did not develop a full idea, now this took about, I guess, 70 seconds. What I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you understood how I stitched, how I connected and linked the different parts. So this is a super important, what is the door that brings me from the entrance hall to each room and then to the closure? Okay, we judge a guiding point also by structure, which is opening or intro, body, which has usually a few parts to it, and closure. A very pretty thing to see in literature. And also in guiding is that often there's also a spout. After you came to the closure, all the water drops falling on the roof go down the water spout back to the entrance. In literature, it's called a frame. What I described to you until now is what is the sequence of guiding. I did not describe to you a truth which is also important, the sequence of preparing the guiding. Because when I prepare my guiding point, when I think about it, my first question is not what's the entrance. My first question is, what do I want to say? What is the takeaway that people will take from my guiding here, from the 3 minutes I have here passing Jericho? That's what I ask. I ask myself, what is the roof? From everything, I was in the library before, I read all these stories, I have all this information in my head, but what can I give people that is not details, that is not more information? What can I give the people that is a meaningful understanding, thought, question, that they can go away and, oh, this is something, this is, you know what, I read these stories, I know them by heart, but here's, wow, the way it connects to the geography is super interesting. What is the takeaway I want to give them? It can be a zillion, we'll talk about it after. But when I prepare guiding, often I will think about the roof and then design everything else in a way that it will lead me to the roof I want. Okay, I see the entire frame, and then I know how I will open. For example, if we're somehow in biblical stories, so I have this guiding point with Gideon, which I start sometimes, you know, often there are people who do things and don't take the credit, and other people that take the credit for them. I find that a sentence that people can relate to. It gathers interest. And here happened one of the greatest dramas. And we'll ask yourself who gets credit for it. Yeah? So that's a kind of an intro, and here I have a kind of an idea that we can take away at the end. What matters, the credit or the action? Interesting question. I think we all have in our lives. Okay, so those are, this is kind of an introduction to the structure of the guiding point, which is our main topic for our meeting today. And just like in real life, what I chose to do also in the order of our class is to start with management, with logistics, with preparation, which the guiding is impossible without. And from here, after a short, or let's say whatever you want, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, Akiva, you'll be the boss. After being a little refreshed, Akiva, Ma Omer? Ariel, unmute you. Yes.
It's now 37 past 2. We will take 15 minutes, so it brings us to, let's say, 5 minutes before 3 that we will reconvene. Okay?
I did want to ask one question.
2:55, 5 minutes before 3 we'll reconvene.
Let's put your questions on the chat board that I put here, either on Zoom or there, and we can take it right after the break.
All right, guys. See you in 15 minutes or so. 5 before.